Okay, so you guys sent in a ton of stuff this time.
Uh-huh.
All about,
Yeah.
I guess, how to deal with disagreements better.
Yeah. Having better conversations.
Right, and having, like,
More productive.
more productive, yeah, more meaningful conversations.
Right.
And this is all this civil discourse thing everybody keeps talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're calling this deep dive, like Civil Discourse 101.
I guess.
We're going to, like, pull out the best tips and basically...
Pull out all the good stuff so we can, like, communicate better.
Right, so we can all walk away from this and actually use some of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is for you, the listener, obviously,
Of course.
who, wants to, like,
Understand
this stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, without, like...
Getting a PhD.
Yeah, exactly. Like, without getting, like, a PhD in philosophy or something like that.
Right.
So
Let's jump in.
why is this even important?
Right.
Why should we even care about civil discourse?
Everyone thinks it's just like being nice, but
Why?
your sources actually made a really compelling case that it's so much more than that.
What was that case?
Like, if you think about it,
Uh-huh.
respectful conversation, it's really like the engine of a healthy society.
Okay.
It's how we exchange ideas, how we challenge each other's thinking,
Right.
and how we end up, arriving at better solutions for everybody.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about like global issues or even just like
Yeah, or, like, what's for dinner?
exactly, like, what are we going to eat tonight?
Right.
It's also the foundation for
Yeah.
strong relationships, like
Yeah, personal relationships, work relationships,
personal, professional, all of it.
all that stuff.
Yeah,
And, like, what about the opposite?
right.
Like-
What happens when we don't have that?
Yeah, what happens when we don't have civil discourse? What does that look like?
Well, your material pointed out that it's not pretty.
Yeah, no, it's
So
not.
all these like toxic arguments online, and all those like
Echo chamber.
chambers where everyone just agreeing with each other.
Right, and it's like, and then they're just, like, getting more and more
Extreme.
extreme in their views.
Yeah, and no one's challenging each other.
Right.
And you're not learning anything new.
Right, so it's like when we can't, or when we don't engage with, like, different opinions.
Yeah,
it's stifled everything.
Innovation, and it just deepens all these divides that we already have.
Right.
And then it makes it impossible to find like common ground
Uh-huh.
on anything. It's
Right.
like we're all just stuck.
And then we can't make any progress on all the problems that we all share.
Exactly. It's a mess.
Okay, so why is this so hard then?
Right.
Like, what's the deal?
Why is it so hard to have these civil conversations?
Yeah, like, it seems...
Especially today.
Yeah, like, today it seems almost impossible.
Right.
And I know that social media was a big one.
Huge, right? It was like all over your material.
Yeah, like, all over the place.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right?
Right, because it's like, it's so...
Fast-paced,
Yeah, fast-paced, and it's like...
anonymous.
Yeah, and people just, like, saying whatever they want.
Yeah, and you're not really thinking about what you're saying. You're just like
Right.
reacting,
Yeah, and you're not really, like...
considering.
Yeah, you're not considering the other person's viewpoint
No.
at all.
No.
And it feels like people are just, like, ready to attack each other
Yeah, always.
all the time.
Like, why is everyone so angry?
Yeah, like, why is it so hard to just, like, listen to somebody
Right.
with a different opinion and just be like,
And be respectful.
hey, be like, okay, you think this, I think this, and that's okay.
Exactly. And it's hard because so much of the time our beliefs are tied up with our identity.
Oh,
So
interesting.
like when someone challenges our beliefs,
Uh-huh.
it feels like they're attacking us personally.
Oh, I see.
And, we're also all kind of guilty of this, but
What?
we tend to just look for information that agrees with what we already believe.
Right, it's like confirmation bias.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about that before.
It's like a mental shortcut,
Right.
It's easier to just stick with what we know.
Right,
But that doesn't help us grow.
right. It doesn't help us learn anything.
Yeah.
Um,
And, I think a lot of it comes down to there's a big difference between debate
okay,
and discussion.
okay. I like
So, like,
that.
in a debate,
Mhm.
the goal is usually to, like, win.
Right, to, like, beat the other person
An exact.
to
yeah.
prove that you're right and they're wrong.
Yeah.
What?
But in a discussion,
Yeah.
the goal should be to understand.
Okay, yeah.
Like, to understand the other person's point of view.
Okay, that's a good distinction. So how do we do that then?
Right.
How do we have those good discussions?
Yeah.
Those productive discussions where
Wow.
we're all learning and growing it.
One of the biggest things is active listening.
Okay, we hear that a lot.
Yeah, it's like the foundation of good communication.
Yeah,
It's not just about like hearing the words, it's about actually paying attention
right.
to what the other person is saying.
Okay, so like really being present in the conversation.
Yeah, like being present and trying to understand their perspective.
Okay.
Before you even start thinking about your response.
Right, like don't just be waiting to jump in at your own opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
And your sources talked about like asking good questions.
Yes,
Right.
like questions that are designed to help you understand the other person's reasoning,
Right,
not to like poke holes in their argument.
right, like not to be like, gotcha.
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's more about being like,
Like, help me understand.
Yeah, help me understand why you think that. Like,
Yeah.
what led you to that conclusion?
Okay, so instead of saying something like,
Yeah.
how could you possibly believe that?
Right.
You'd say something like,
Yeah.
can you help me understand
Yeah.
what led you to that conclusion?
Exactly.
I like that.
And when you ask those kinds of questions,
Yeah.
it shows that you're genuinely interested
Right.
in understanding their point of view.
Okay.
And it encourages them to elaborate more.
Right. So it's not just like a yes or no question.
Exactly.
It's like,
It's an invitation.
yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, tell me more.
Okay.
And it also helps you avoid making assumptions,
Right.
which is so important.
Right. Because we all do that.
We all do it.
We
Yeah.
all make assumptions.
Yeah.
And empathy was another big one.
Oh, huge.
Like all the sources talked about that.
Right, because empathy is so important.
Yeah. So how does empathy play into this?
Well, empathy allows us to connect with people
Okay.
on a human level.
Okay.
Like, even if we completely disagree with them,
Uh-huh.
if we can try to understand why they believe what they believe,
Right.
it can really like diffuse tension
Oh.
and create a more open space for dialogue. So it's like you're saying, okay, I hear you, I
That-
see where you're coming from,
Right.
and now let's talk.
Right. And that's huge because
It is.
most of the time people just want to be heard.
Absolutely.
Like,
Right.
that's all they really
They
want.
just want to know that somebody is actually listening to them.
And that you get it.
Right. And that you understand where they're coming from,
Exactly.
even if you don't agree with them.
Right.
Okay, so let's get down to like the practical stuff. Like,
Right.
how do we disagree with somebody
Yeah.
without like,
Punch him in the face.
yeah, without like, getting into a fight?
Right.
Like, what are the actual steps?
Well, first of all, focus on the issue, not the person.
Okay, so don't make it person.
Exactly.
Right. Like, don't attack their character. Just stick to the topic at hand.
Right.
And use I statements.
Okay.
Instead of you statement.
Okay, so instead of saying you're wrong,
Right.
you would say,
I disagree. I disagree.
oh, I see it differently.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. And avoid generalizations.
Okay.
Like you always do
Okay,
that.
or you never do that.
Right. Those are not helpful.
Okay.
And obviously avoid personal attacks,
Right.
like name calling and stuff.
Yeah, that's just being mean.
Yeah, it's not going to get you anywhere.
Okay.
And stick to the facts
Good.
as you understand them.
Right.
But also be open to the possibility
Yeah.
that you might not have all the facts.
Right.
Or that your understanding might be incomplete.
Right. Because nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one really helpful tip
Yeah.
that came up in your source
Okay.
was if things are getting heated,
Uh-huh.
just take a break.
Okay.
Like suggest revisiting the conversation later.
Right. When everybody's calmed down.
Exactly.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
So, like, the big takeaway here is that
Yeah.
civil discourse isn't really about agreeing with each other all the time.
No.
Right.
It's more about
Yeah.
like having the skills to navigate those disagreements
Right.
respectfully, like
Yeah.
through active listening and asking good questions
Yeah.
and empathy.
He's always focusing on the issue.
Yes.
not
yes.
the person.
Exactly. It's about prioritizing, understanding,
Right.
and finding common ground.
Yeah.
Even when you don't totally agree.
Right. Because you're not always going to agree.
No.
Right.
But you can still have a productive conversation.
Right.
And learn something from each other.
Right.
And maybe even change your mind.
Okay. So, like, think about the last time you had, like, a tough conversation
Yeah.
with somebody where you disagreed with them.
Yeah.
Based on all this stuff we just talked about,
Uh-huh.
what's one thing you could have done differently
Right.
to make that conversation better?
Yeah.
Like, what's one little tweak you could have made?
It's something to think about for
Yeah.
your next interaction.
Yeah, for your next conversation.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Civil Discourse 101.
There you go.
Thanks for sending in all the material.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.